Say something, please. Tell me this isn't what it looks like.
Claire,
No, don't. Don't say my name like that, like you still get to say it soft.
Claire, I can explain.
Explain? You held my hair back the night he proposed. You cried at my wedding. You told me you'd never seen two people more in love.
It's not what you think.
I flew 4 hours to surprise you. I had a whole speech ready. I was gonna tell you I'm pregnant. But I guess you already have a family standing right in front of you. A family? There is no family no more. And for you, Marcus, it's over. And for you, Vanessa, you are my best friend, but not this. Look at what you did. So fake people are full in this world.
Claire, I'm so sorry. Claire, please. Claire, wait!
At 5:17 on a Thursday morning, Claire Bennett stood in her bedroom, with one hand pressed over her mouth, staring at two pink lines. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the test, as though the answer might disappear if she looked away long enough. For almost 3 years, Claire and Marcus had talked about having a child. Not constantly, not desperately, just enough that the subject had become part of the future they imagined together. A bigger apartment, a second bedroom, a crib beside their bed, Marcus complaining about sleepless nights while secretly enjoying every second of them. Claire had imagined all of it, but there had always been something in the way. Marcus's traveling, her work, bills, family obligations, and, lately, something neither of them wanted to name. Distance. Emotional distance. Marcus had begun spending more time away from home. At first, it was because of work. Then came the dinners after work. Then the meetings that somehow lasted until midnight. Then the phone calls he took on the balcony. And finally, the silence. Claire had asked him about it more than once. Every time, Marcus had given her the same answer. "I'm tired, Claire." So she had stopped asking. That morning, however, she smiled for the first time in weeks. She picked up her phone. Marcus was still asleep. His flight was scheduled to leave Atlanta at 7:05 that morning, and he was supposed to spend 4 days in Chicago for a consulting conference. Claire looked at the pregnancy test again. Then she looked at her husband's sleeping face. She wanted to tell him in person, not through a text, not through a phone call. She wanted to see his face. She wanted to watch the man she loved realize that, after all their uncertainty, they were finally going to become parents. She quietly packed the test inside a small gift box. Then she added a pair of tiny white baby socks she had purchased months earlier and never had a reason to use. At the bottom of the box, she placed a handwritten note. "Looks like our family is getting one person bigger." Claire smiled. She had no idea that before the day ended, she would wonder whether that family had ever existed at all. By 9:30 that morning, Claire was on a flight to Chicago. She had changed her schedule. She had arranged for her assistant to cover her afternoon meeting. She had even lied to Marcus. When he called her from the airport earlier that morning, she had pretended she was already at work. "Have a good trip," she told him. "You too." "Marcus? Yeah? I love you." There was a pause. Not a long one, just long enough for Claire to notice. "I love you too." She smiled. At the time, she thought his hesitation was exhaustion. Later, she would remember it differently. Chicago welcomed her with cold wind and a gray afternoon sky. Claire checked into a hotel near the airport and waited. She didn't want Marcus to see her immediately. She wanted the surprise to be perfect. She checked the conference schedule online and discovered that Marcus's final session ended at 4:30. His return flight was at 6:15. Perfect. Claire arranged for a driver to take her to the airport. She carried her suitcase through the terminal with the small gift box tucked safely inside her handbag. Every few minutes, she touched the bag. She couldn't stop smiling. She imagined Marcus's face. She imagined him pulling her into his arms. She imagined him laughing in disbelief. Maybe he would cry. Maybe she would. Maybe the distance between them would finally disappear. Claire didn't know that sometimes the heart creates beautiful pictures precisely because it cannot see what is waiting around the corner. At 5:02 p.m., Claire stood near the arrivals area. The airport was crowded. Families hugged. Children ran toward grandparents. Business travelers checked their phones. Suitcases rolled across polished marble. Claire kept looking toward the sliding doors. Then she saw him. Marcus. He was wearing a dark navy shirt and carrying his black suitcase. But he wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him. Claire stopped breathing. Her fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. The woman turned slightly. Claire recognized her immediately. Vanessa, her best friend. For several seconds, Claire couldn't move. Marcus said something to Vanessa. Vanessa laughed. Then Marcus reached toward her suitcase and pulled it behind him. It was such a small gesture. So ordinary. So intimate. Claire felt something inside her collapse. The airport continued moving around her. People walked past. Announcements echoed from overhead speakers. A child laughed somewhere behind her. But Claire heard none of it. She could only see Marcus. And Vanessa. Together. Walking toward her. Claire stepped forward. Marcus looked up. His expression changed instantly. Vanessa turned. Her face went pale. Claire's suitcase handle slipped slightly from her hand. "Say something," Claire whispered. Marcus froze. "Claire." "No." She shook her head. "Don't say my name like that." Vanessa stepped forward. "Claire, I can explain." Claire looked at her. "You can explain?" Her voice trembled. "You held my hair back the night he proposed." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "You cried at my wedding." "Claire, you told me you had never seen two people more in love." Marcus stepped forward. "It's not what you think." Claire laughed once. There was no humor in it. "I flew 4 hours to surprise you." Marcus stared at her. "I had a whole speech ready." She reached into her handbag. "I was going to tell you something." Her fingers closed around the small box. "I was going to tell you I'm pregnant." Marcus stopped moving. Vanessa covered her mouth. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Claire looked at both of them. "But I guess." Her voice cracked. "You already have a family standing right in front of you." She turned. The wheels of her suitcase screeched against the marble floor as she walked away. "Claire!" She stopped. Slowly, she turned. "A family?" Her eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "There is no family anymore." Marcus's face crumpled. "Claire, please." "For you, Marcus, it's over." Then she looked at Vanessa. "And you?" Vanessa couldn't speak. "You were my best friend." Claire shook her head. "But look at what you did." Vanessa whispered, "I'm sorry." Claire's eyes hardened. So fake people really are everywhere. She turned and walked away. Marcus shouted her name. She didn't look back. Not once. "Before we move further into the story, I need you to tell me something. Where are you watching from? If you like stories like this, make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you would love to hear. Now, back to Claire. Claire didn't cry until she reached the airport parking garage. She sat inside the car with the door closed and finally allowed herself to break. Her shoulders shook. She pressed both hands against her face. For 8 years, she had defended Marcus. When people said he worked too much, she said he was building a future. When her mother questioned his absences, Claire said marriage required patience. When Vanessa once asked whether Claire was happy, Claire had answered without hesitation, "Of course I am." Now she wondered whether she had been answering Vanessa or herself. Her phone began ringing. "Marcus." She declined. Again. "Marcus." Declined. Then Vanessa. Declined. Then Marcus again. Claire switched the phone off. She leaned her forehead against the steering wheel. Her handbag sat on the passenger seat. Inside it was the small white box, the pregnancy test, the baby socks, the note. Claire slowly opened the bag. She stared at the box. Then she began crying again. Not because she was pregnant, because she had imagined giving that box to a man who apparently had another life waiting for him. Claire drove to a small hotel downtown. She checked into a room without telling anyone. For the first time in 8 years, she wanted to be completely alone. She ordered tea. She didn't drink it. She took a shower. She didn't feel cleaner. She opened her laptop. She couldn't work. Finally, around midnight, she turned her phone back on. There were 23 missed calls, 14 from Marcus, 9 from Vanessa. There were also messages. The first was from Marcus. Please let me explain. The second, it isn't what you think. The third, I swear I wasn't trying to hurt you. Claire stared at that sentence. Then she laughed bitterly. Wasn't trying to hurt her? What exactly did he think walking through an airport with Vanessa looked like? She opened Vanessa's messages. The first said, Claire, please, I need you to hear me. The second, I know what it looks like. Claire stopped reading. She put the phone down. Then something caught her attention. One of Marcus's messages had arrived only minutes after she left the airport. I was going to tell you tonight. Claire froze. Tell me what? She picked up the phone again. There was another message. You deserved to hear it from me. Claire stared at the screen. Then came the final message. Please don't make a decision about us before you know the whole truth. She felt anger rise inside her. The whole truth? She whispered the words aloud. She almost threw the phone across the room, but something stopped her. Curiosity, not forgiveness, not hope. Curiosity. Claire called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Claire. Talk. Marcus breathed heavily. Where are you? That doesn't matter. It matters to me. Then start talking. There was silence. Claire waited. Finally, Marcus said, Vanessa and I have been talking for months. Claire closed her eyes. About what? Our marriage. Claire's stomach tightened. What does Vanessa have to do with our marriage? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Everything. Claire's eyes opened. What does that mean? I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. Tell me what? I don't know how to say this without hurting you. Claire's voice became cold. You already hurt me. Marcus swallowed. I know. Then stop protecting yourself. Another silence. Finally, Marcus said, I was going to leave you. Claire couldn't speak. The room became strangely quiet. Leave me? Yes. When? Tonight. Claire stared at the wall. You were going to come home from Chicago and tell me you wanted a divorce? Yes. And Vanessa knew? Yes. Claire laughed. A tear slid down her cheek. So she wasn't just standing beside you at the airport. No. She was helping you leave me. Marcus didn't answer. That silence was enough. Claire ended the call. She sat on the edge of the bed for several minutes. Then she opened the small gift box. The baby socks were still there. She picked them up. For the first time, she wondered whether Marcus would even want to know. She wondered whether she should tell him. Then she remembered something Vanessa had said 6 months earlier. They had been sitting in Claire's kitchen. Vanessa had been drinking coffee. She had looked at Claire and asked, Do you ever feel like Marcus isn't really there anymore? Claire had laughed. He's tired. Vanessa had looked down. No. What? Nothing. Claire remembered that conversation now, not as a friend asking a question, but as someone who already knew something. The next morning, Claire didn't return to Atlanta. She extended the hotel reservation. Then she called her older sister, Naomi. Naomi answered immediately. Claire? I need somewhere to stay. There was a pause. What happened? Claire couldn't say it. Not yet. She simply whispered, Can I come to your house? Of course. Then, Naomi lived 40 minutes outside Chicago with her husband and 2 children. When Claire arrived, Naomi opened the door and immediately knew something was wrong. She didn't ask questions. She hugged her sister. Claire broke down. For nearly an hour, she cried on Naomi's couch. Eventually, Naomi sat beside her. Tell me. Claire did. Everything. The airport, Marcus, Vanessa, the pregnancy, the phone calls. Naomi listened without interrupting. When Claire finished, Naomi looked at her. Do you believe they were having an affair? Claire looked down. I don't know. But you saw them. I know what I saw. That's not what I asked. Claire's eyes filled again. I don't know what to believe. Naomi reached for her hand. Then don't decide today. Claire looked at her. Why? Because you're hurt. I have a right to be angry. Yes. I have a right to leave. Yes. But you don't have to decide your entire future while you're still shaking. Claire looked toward the window. Snow had begun falling. She thought about Marcus, then Vanessa, then the baby. Naomi? Yeah? What if my child is the only thing left of this marriage? Naomi squeezed her hand. Your child isn't responsible for saving your marriage. Claire looked at her sister. Then what is? Naomi's answer was quiet. Nothing. That sentence stayed with Claire. 3 days passed. Marcus continued calling. Claire didn't answer. Vanessa sent one message. Just one. I know you hate me. I understand. But there is something you don't know. Claire didn't respond. Then another message arrived. I never slept with your husband. Claire stared at the screen. Her heart began beating faster. She didn't know whether to believe it. She called Vanessa. Vanessa answered immediately. Neither woman spoke for several seconds. Finally, Claire said, Explain. Vanessa took a shaky breath. I never slept with Marcus. Claire closed her eyes. Then why were you with him? Because he asked me to help him. Help him do what? Leave. Claire's jaw tightened. Why? Vanessa's voice broke. Because Marcus believed you were planning to leave him first. Claire froze. What? He found something. What did he find? Vanessa hesitated. A letter. Claire frowned. What letter? The one you wrote to your mother. Claire's face changed. She remembered it. 3 months earlier, during the worst period of her marriage, Claire had written a private letter to her mother. Her mother had died years earlier. The letter had never been sent. It was simply something Claire wrote when she didn't know where else to put her feelings. She had written, I'm tired of pretending this marriage is okay. Marcus had somehow found it. Vanessa continued. He thought you were preparing to leave him. Claire whispered. I wasn't. I know. Then why didn't you tell him? I tried. Claire stood up. Vanessa, you watched him believe his wife was leaving him. I was trying to stop him from making a mistake. What mistake? Vanessa started crying. The night before Marcus left for Chicago, he told me he was going to end your marriage because he thought you didn't love him anymore. Claire said nothing. Vanessa continued. I told him he was wrong. Then why did you go with him? Because he asked me to help him tell you the truth. Claire stared at the wall. Why couldn't he tell me himself? Because he was scared. Of what? Vanessa whispered. That you would tell him the truth. Claire's voice became quieter. What truth? Vanessa hesitated. Then she said, that you were pregnant. Claire's heart stopped. How did you know? Vanessa cried. Because you called me the morning you took the test. Claire remembered. She had called Vanessa at 5:30 that morning. Vanessa had been the first person she told. She had whispered, I think I'm pregnant. Vanessa had cried with happiness. Claire had never told Marcus. She had wanted the airport surprise, but Vanessa knew. And Marcus had somehow discovered the pregnancy test receipt in Claire's purse 2 days earlier. Vanessa continued. Marcus thought you were going to surprise him with a divorce. Claire whispered. And you knew the truth. Yes. Why didn't you tell him? Vanessa's answer came slowly. Because he told me something you don't know. Claire waited. He was going to leave you because he thought you didn't want him anymore. Claire's eyes filled. Vanessa continued. He had already signed a lease on a small apartment. Claire sat down. He was going to move out. Yes. And you were helping him? I was trying to stop him from making the biggest mistake of his life. Claire covered her face. Everything had become more complicated. The airport still hurt. The betrayal of trust was still real. But now the story she had built in her mind was changing. Marcus hadn't been walking out of the airport with Vanessa because he loved Vanessa. He had been walking out with her because both of them were carrying secrets. But one question remained. Claire looked at her phone. Vanessa. Yes? Why was Marcus holding your suitcase? Vanessa went silent. Claire waited. Vanessa? Finally, Vanessa said, Because mine wasn't actually my suitcase. Claire frowned. What? It belonged to Marcus. Claire stared at the phone. Why? Because inside, it was everything he was planning to give you. What? Vanessa took a breath. His wedding ring. Claire's eyes widened. He had decided to return it. The room seemed to tilt. He told me he didn't want to give it back until he had spoken to you. Claire didn't know what to say. Then Vanessa whispered, there was something else in the suitcase. What? A folder. What was inside? Vanessa began crying. Documents. What documents? Medical records. Claire's heart pounded. Whose? Vanessa didn't answer. Whose medical records? Finally, she whispered, Marcus's. Claire froze. What is wrong with him? Vanessa's voice broke. He hasn't told you. Claire stood. What hasn't he told me? Vanessa cried harder. Claire, Marcus didn't go to Chicago for the conference. Claire's breathing stopped. He went there for treatment. The room went silent. Treatment for what? Vanessa couldn't say it. Claire's hand trembled around the phone. Then Vanessa finally whispered, he's been diagnosed with a heart condition. Claire closed her eyes. And suddenly, the airport scene looked different. Not less painful, not less confusing, but different. Because Claire finally understood that there was a truth Marcus had been carrying that she had never even considered. And for the first time since she saw him walking beside Vanessa, Claire wondered whether the biggest betrayal in her marriage had actually been an affair, or whether it was two people who loved each other becoming so afraid of losing one another that they stopped telling each other the truth. Claire didn't speak for several seconds. She stood in Naomi's guest room with the phone pressed against her ear, staring at the snow-covered window. Her mind kept returning to the same sentence. He went there for treatment. Not a conference. Not a business trip. Treatment. She remembered every time Marcus had rubbed the left side of his chest. Every time he had become unusually quiet after climbing the stairs. Every time he had said he was tired. She had noticed. But she had never understood. And Marcus had never explained. Vanessa, Claire finally said, where is he? I don't know. You don't know? He checked into a private clinic yesterday. Which one? Vanessa hesitated. Then she gave Claire the name. Claire grabbed her coat. Naomi appeared in the doorway. Where are you going? To see Marcus. Naomi didn't stop her. She simply picked up her keys. I'm driving. The clinic was 30 minutes away. Neither sister spoke much during the drive. Claire sat in the passenger seat holding her phone. Marcus had called again. She stared at his name. For the first time in 3 days, she wanted to answer. But fear held her back. What if he was seriously ill? What if the doctors had given him terrible news? What if she walked into that room and realized she had spent 3 days hating a man who had been terrified of dying? Then another thought entered her mind. What if he had still lied? What if the medical condition explained the secrecy but didn't excuse everything else? Naomi glanced at her. You don't have to forgive him because he's sick. Claire looked out the window. I know. You don't have to go back to him. I know. And you don't have to decide today. Claire nodded. I know. Naomi smiled faintly. Good. Claire finally looked at her sister. Then why do I feel like I'm going to fall apart? Because you're still his wife. Claire looked down. That answer hurt more than she expected. Marcus was sitting beside a hospital window when Claire entered the room. He looked different. Not dramatically. Just tired. His face seemed thinner. There was a small medical monitor beside him. A hospital bracelet circled his wrist. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Marcus looked at Claire. She looked at him. Then his eyes dropped to her stomach. He whispered, You're really pregnant? Claire nodded. Marcus closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek. I was praying you would tell me. Claire's expression hardened. You were? Every day. Then why were you leaving me? Marcus looked down. I thought you were leaving me. I wasn't. I know that now. No, Marcus. Claire stepped closer. You don't get to say that. He looked up. I know. You don't get to find one private letter I wrote when I was hurting and decide what I was going to do with my life. I know. You don't get to disappear for weeks, lie about where you're going, involve my best friend, sign a lease behind my back, and then tell me you were protecting me. Marcus lowered his head. I know. Claire's voice cracked. And you don't get to make me feel guilty for being angry because you're sick. I would never ask you to. Then what were you asking me to do? Marcus looked at her. Stay. Claire stared at him. He continued. Not because you owe me. Then why? Because I'm scared. The room became silent. Marcus swallowed. I've spent months pretending I wasn't. He looked toward the window. When the doctor first told me about my heart, I thought I could handle it. Claire listened. I told myself it was manageable, that I'd get treatment, change my diet, slow down, and everything would be normal. He gave a humorless laugh. But then the tests got worse. Claire's eyes filled. And you didn't tell me. I didn't know how. You could have started with, Claire, I'm sick. I know. Why didn't you? Marcus looked at her. Because I was afraid you would stay because you felt sorry for me. Claire didn't answer. I didn't want to become your responsibility. You were my husband. I know. You were supposed to let me choose. Marcus nodded. You're right. Claire sat down. For the first time, the anger in her face gave way to exhaustion. I would have chosen you. Marcus looked at her. I know that now. Then Marcus explained everything. The medical appointments, the worsening symptoms, the diagnosis, the trip to Chicago, the specialist, the treatment plan, and the fear. But there was something else. He admitted that he had been unhappy for months. Not because he didn't love Claire, because he had become convinced that Claire no longer loved him. He had misread her exhaustion as rejection, her silence as indifference, her private letter as a plan to leave. And instead of asking her what was wrong, he had made decisions on her behalf. That was my mistake, he said. Claire looked at him. You didn't cheat on me. No, but you still betrayed me. Marcus nodded. I know. That was the first answer that made Claire believe he might actually understand. He wasn't defending himself. He wasn't blaming Vanessa. He wasn't saying the airport scene had been misunderstood. He was admitting that his choices had consequences. Claire looked at him. Why Vanessa? Marcus sighed. Because she was the only person who knew about your pregnancy. Claire frowned. I told her that morning. She told me you had called her. Marcus hesitated. I thought you were preparing to leave me. And you thought Vanessa could help? I thought she could help me understand you. Claire shook her head. That's the problem, Marcus. What? You kept asking everybody else what I was thinking instead of asking me. He looked down. She continued. You asked Vanessa. You asked yourself. You read my letter. You made plans. You went to a doctor alone. You decided what I wanted. Claire's voice softened. But you never asked me. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. No, that isn't marriage. I know. Marriage is not guessing what the other person feels. I know. Marriage is asking. Marcus nodded. You're right. Then Claire noticed something beside the hospital bed. A small black suitcase. Her eyes narrowed. Is that yours? Marcus nodded. What's inside? He looked at it. My clothes. Anything else? Marcus hesitated. The folder. Claire stood. Show me. Marcus slowly opened the suitcase. Inside was a dark blue folder. Claire pulled it out. Medical reports. Prescription information. Appointment notes. And beneath them, a small velvet box. Claire froze. Marcus looked at it. I bought that before I got sick. Claire opened it. Inside was a simple gold necklace. Nothing extravagant. On the back was a tiny engraving. For the woman who taught me what home means. Claire's eyes filled. When did you buy this? 6 months ago. Why? Because I was going to ask you something. Claire looked at him. What? Marcus took a breath. I wanted to renew our vows. Claire stared at him. Before all of this? Yes. Why? because I realized I had been treating our marriage like something that would always be there. He looked at her. I wanted to tell you I was sorry. Claire touched the necklace. And then? And then the diagnosis came. He looked away. After that, everything became about hospitals and appointments. Claire slowly closed the box. She didn't put the necklace on, but she didn't give it back either. Sen. That afternoon, Claire and Marcus sat together for nearly 2 hours. They didn't decide whether the marriage would survive. They talked about everything they had avoided: money, work, children, fear, sex, loneliness, family, expectations, the ways they had both changed. At one point, Claire asked, "Did you ever love Vanessa?" Marcus looked shocked. No. Not even for a second? No. Then why did she risk our friendship for you? Marcus looked toward the door. Because she loved you. Claire frowned. That's not what I expected. Vanessa told me something the first night we talked. What? She said. If you hurt Claire, I'll never forgive you. If you leave her because you're afraid, I'll never forgive you either. Claire looked down. Marcus continued. She wasn't helping me leave you. Then what was she doing? Trying to stop me. Claire closed her eyes. She suddenly remembered Vanessa's face at the airport. Not the guilt, the fear. Claire had mistaken both. Tim. Vanessa came to the clinic that evening. She stood in the hallway for several minutes before knocking. Claire opened the door. They looked at each other. Neither woman moved. Finally, Vanessa whispered, "Can I come in?" Claire stepped aside. Vanessa entered. She looked exhausted. I don't know if you ever want to forgive me. Claire said nothing. But I need you to know something. Claire crossed her arms. What? I should have told you everything. Yes? I should never have allowed Marcus to make decisions based on a letter he wasn't supposed to read. Yes. I should have called you the moment he told me about his diagnosis. Yes. Vanessa nodded. I know. Claire's eyes filled. Why didn't you? Vanessa looked down. Because he made me promise. Claire's expression hardened. You chose him over me. No. Vanessa looked directly at her. I chose what I thought was protecting you. Claire shook her head. That's the same thing people always say when they make decisions for somebody else. Vanessa couldn't answer. Claire continued. You thought I couldn't handle the truth. I was wrong. You thought Marcus couldn't handle the truth. I was wrong. You thought you knew what was best for both of us. Vanessa nodded. I was wrong. Claire looked away. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vanessa said, I lost my best friend, trying to protect her. Claire whispered, You didn't lose me because you protected me. Vanessa looked up. You lost me because you stopped trusting me enough to let me decide for myself. Vanessa began crying. Claire didn't hug her. Not yet. But she didn't ask her to leave. That was enough. 3 weeks later, Marcus underwent his procedure. Claire was there. So was Naomi. Vanessa stayed away until Claire invited her. The procedure lasted several hours. Claire spent most of that time sitting in a hospital chair, staring at the same spot on the floor. At 2:18 p.m., the doctor finally came out. The procedure went well. Claire closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe. So, Marcus recovered slowly. There were setbacks. There were arguments. There were nights when Claire slept in the guest room. There were mornings when Marcus wondered whether she would eventually leave. But something had changed. They stopped pretending. When Claire was angry, she said so. When Marcus was afraid, he admitted it. When Claire needed space, she asked for it. When Marcus needed help, he stopped pretending he didn't. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't perfect. It was honest. And honesty, they discovered, was much harder than romance. 4 months later, Claire sat in a doctor's office with Marcus beside her. The ultrasound monitor glowed softly. The doctor smiled. Everything looks healthy. Marcus squeezed Claire's hand. She looked at him. He was crying. She laughed quietly. You're crying. I know. You said you wouldn't. I lied. Claire smiled. It was the first genuine smile they had shared in months. Marcus looked at the monitor. "That's our baby." Claire nodded. "Yes." He squeezed her hand again. "I'm sorry." Claire looked at him. "For what?" "For making you carry all of this alone." Claire's eyes softened. "I'm sorry too." Marcus frowned. "For what?" "For deciding you didn't love me because you stopped talking." He nodded. "Maybe we were both scared." "Maybe." They sat quietly. Then Marcus asked, "Are we going to be okay?" Claire looked at him. She didn't give him the answer he wanted. Instead, she said, "I don't know." Marcus nodded. Claire continued, "But we're finally asking each other the right questions." He smiled. "That's something." "Yes, it is." 6 months later, Claire gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Maya. The first night they brought her home, Marcus stood beside the crib for almost an hour. Claire watched him from the doorway. He looked at their daughter. Then he looked at Claire. "She's beautiful." Claire smiled. "She is." Marcus walked over. He reached for Claire's hand. She let him hold it. Not because everything was forgotten. It wasn't. Not because the pain had disappeared. It hadn't. But because they had finally understood something. A marriage isn't saved by one grand gesture. Not by a pregnancy. Not by a necklace. Not by a hospital procedure. Not by an apology. It's saved by thousands of ordinary decisions to tell the truth before silence becomes a wall. A year after the airport incident, Claire returned to Chicago. This time, she wasn't running away. She and Marcus were attending a small family celebration. They walked through the same airport terminal, where everything had fallen apart. Claire stopped. Marcus noticed. "You okay?" She smiled. "Yeah." He looked around. "I remember this place." "So do I." Marcus hesitated. "I still hate that day." Claire looked at him. "I don't." He seemed surprised. "You don't?" Claire shook her head. "No." "Why?" She looked across the terminal. "Because I thought that day showed me that my marriage was over." She smiled faintly. "But it actually showed me how broken it already was." Marcus lowered his eyes. "And that isn't something I'm proud of." "I know." Claire reached for his hand. "But I'm grateful we finally stopped pretending." Marcus smiled. Then he noticed something in her hand. The small gold necklace. The one he had bought 6 months before the airport confrontation. She had never worn it before. He stared. "You kept it." Claire touched the engraving. "Of course." Marcus smiled. "Why are you wearing it now?" Claire looked at him. "Because now I know what it means." "What?" She smiled. "It doesn't mean our marriage survived." Marcus waited. "It means we chose to rebuild it." Vanessa eventually returned to Claire's life too. Not immediately. There were months of distance. Slow conversations. Uncomfortable dinners. Long silences. But one evening, Vanessa showed up at Claire's house carrying a casserole. Claire opened the door. They stared at each other. Vanessa held up the dish. "I didn't know what else to bring." Claire laughed. "You're still terrible at apologies." "I know." Claire opened the door wider. "Come in." Vanessa smiled. She stepped inside. Their friendship didn't return exactly as it had been. That would have been unrealistic. Trust had changed. Boundaries had changed. But something more mature eventually grew in its place. Claire learned that forgiveness did not mean pretending nothing happened. Vanessa learned that protecting someone, without telling them the truth, could become another form of betrayal. Marcus learned that fear could make a person lie, even when they believed they were acting out of love. And Claire learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the person you think betrayed you has also been carrying a fear you never knew existed. That doesn't erase what they did. It simply gives you enough truth to decide what to do with it. 2 years after the airport incident, Claire was standing in her kitchen when Maya came running through the doorway. "Mommy." Claire bent down. Maya wrapped her arms around her. Marcus appeared behind her carrying groceries. "Someone missed you." Claire smiled. "Someone always misses me." Marcus put the groceries down. "Can I help?" Claire looked at him. "Yes." He waited. Put the milk away. Marcus laughed. That's all? For now. He walked toward the refrigerator. Claire watched him. There was nothing dramatic about the moment. No mansion, no expensive car, no secret fortune. No revenge. Just a husband putting milk into a refrigerator while his daughter laughed in the next room. And somehow, after everything they had survived, that ordinary moment meant more to Claire than any grand promise ever could. Because the life she wanted had never really been about having a perfect marriage. It was about having an honest one. Later that night, after Maya was asleep, Claire stood on the balcony. Marcus joined her. He leaned against the railing. You thinking about the airport again? She smiled. Maybe. What are you thinking? Claire looked at the city lights. I'm thinking about the woman I was that day. What about her? She thought love meant never questioning the person beside you. Marcus nodded. And now? Now I think love means being brave enough to ask questions. He smiled. Claire continued. And brave enough to hear answers you may not like. Marcus looked at her. And if you don't like the answer? Claire turned toward him. Then you decide what comes next. He nodded. They stood together in silence. No promises. No dramatic speeches. Just two people who had learned that trust wasn't something you earned once and kept forever. It had to be rebuilt. Conversation by conversation. Choice by choice. Day by day. And sometimes, even after the worst moment of your life, you could still choose to build something better from what was left. Claire looked through the glass doors toward the hallway, where her daughter's nightlight was glowing. Then she smiled. The airport had once been the place where she believed her family ended. She would always remember that day. But she no longer remembered it as the day she lost everything. She remembered it as the day she finally learned the difference between loving someone and truly knowing them. And that difference changed the rest of her life.